philosophy podcast called mikesmastermind.com. And I'm actually recording this today, Sunday morning. It's April 21st, 2024. And this is really for a close circle of friends, really close friends who've been kind of supporters of mine. And right now, it's a particular time of interest because I'm going through this major transition, just got through a divorce. I have to move out of my digs. I gave the house to the wife, as well as other property and assets. I'm completely starting off on my own again. And it's kind of an exciting time. I'm launching studiopodcast.com, and rather than going to this whole other story, because this is for my close friends, this is all about total reinvention. And I've been writing in my pseudo-philosophy area about what ultra being qualifies, or we can be the best at who we are in our own capacity to express ourselves, whether that be love or some creative artistic dimension. But to me, it's about creating connectivity and community that helps, uplifts, and enlightens. And that's all about me. And in the description below, I have my website, MikeRatner.com, if you want to know more about me, and GrandTourIdeas.com, which is the overall philosophy, GrandTourIdeas.com. And this is not about me promoting myself or necessarily my ideas. It's to kind of go deeper into them. So why I made this particularly for you, Uncle Mike in Chicago and Uncle Brian and Connie in San Francisco, and a few couple other people like Mark in San Diego, I'll probably share this with, and for the people I kind of want to bring in to coalesce. I want to strengthen community where we have enlightened conversations, so community conversations that can talk and tackle social issues. And your input can be valuable in creating something that we can then spin off, that other people can engage because they're attracted to our ideas, or they just like the idea of creating that kind of quality connection through community conversations and the deeper, more intimate level of loving conversations. So communityconversations.com and lovingconversations.com really quite compatible. Anyway, I want to thank you for being my friend and supporting me on my journey, because this is really kind of a rough time in reality, transition where I'm starting from scratch, even though I have this past experience and I love my kids and have this connection with you, family and friends. It's very minuscule in the sense that it's a core component, and I'm energized and encouraged by it. But oh my gosh, it's like at my age and this time in life to sort of just strike out on my own and launch a whole business with the hope through my intention that this is going to work out. So I love you for just sort of going, go for it, Mike. You're the guy. You express yourself. You're saying what's true, at least in my own head. So the purpose of my talking is today is to align some of these ideas and to take it to the next level. So I want to talk about, this idea of being in delusion, because I'm striking out on my own. Part of you kind of like going, oh, you can do it. But the other part of you has to be, as a concerned companion on this journey, is like, is he going to make it? It's like, how's he doing in this transition? Like divorce, heavy duty, and then separation from family and kids, and giving up the assets and just striking out of your own with like, how are you going to do it? Let's see your plan. You have a business plan? Or is it just all up here and just flying by the seat of your pants, just running down the road of life? Well, I do think the podcast channel is innovative and a great idea in the sense that it coalesces a community. We create some content, and hopefully it's compelling that brings people in. So I would like to get published, and I guess I could, this is not Zoom, so I can't share a screen. It's just I'm doing this on YouTube. But I do have, as a request, to look at my goals. I got a birthday coming up, big 6'3", really just a couple months. So I thought, why not work on the goals now rather than just sort of like, happy birthday or happy new year. What's up, man? Like, what's your plan? So I hope you'll ask me that, and also have some, courtesy and consideration to take a look at it. And I'd like to have the same give back and interest in whatever you're doing. And I've, one guy's retired. Well, actually, both of you, my core component ones, because you guys are older than me. I don't know, you're kind of like in some spiritual capacity, an older brother type, dad replacement. I love you, right? So both you guys, Brian and Mike, have you just retired this year. So I guess I should have been in that same capacity not give up all my assets and ideas, put some investments together and retirement and live the life. But no, I'm just going to start over, strike out on my own and do these really highfalutin ideas. Because I got your love and encouragement. You got my back. And we're all going through our shit, right? So I know, when you guys are off on your new adventures, I want to support you and say, hey, this is the time, right? We're going into summer and let's plan something. We all get together. You guys have never met each other. I don't think you guys have even talked. Brian the Brit and Mike the entrepreneur. Both you guys have kind of been really good friends, and Mike a mentor. Going for 42 years now. Back when I was in college, doing an internship with you. So I've done a lot of internships in my time. So I'm interning in this new capacity of my life right now. And rather than ramble on, because Brian says, hey, you got some good ideas, so just get to the point. I do want to talk about one thing that this is sort of the invitation, and then, you could choose to say, okay, this is good enough for me, pause, get off, before you go on to consider what else it is. But basically, the idea is I would like for you guys to meet each other, and I would like for us to have a healthy conversation. To me, it's a step through line to the next dimension where we're going to go together with this. So maybe you guys might hit it off, and plan a get together at some point. I'm sure you would indulge each other's company and find something of interest in just getting to know each other. The fact that you connected through me, these are Mike's friends, and I'm one of them. What does that mean? What does that portend? All right. So that's number one. And then I think in our potential collaboration and connection, a community conversation where we bring forth, what we're feeling out, people we know that I don't know, or maybe I do know that you've connected, people I have met through you, bring them together so we coalesce and have a community conversation. Why not? And it could be something simple about like, hey, where are we at in our society right now? Because it's an election year, there's a lot going on. And this might add a little bit to some people who are sort of really confused, and they really understandably shouldn't be. But this is the reality of our time. So that would help inform my work. But at the same time, I think it would be good for you guys to expand this connection. You've got the time. There is some interest there. We've talked about it. So let's coalesce, right? Let's have a community conversation, at least by fall, before the elections. But given enough time that the people who participate can then go out on their own, and if they should choose, be a part of some kind of community action, consider their own sort of state of mind, consciously where they're at in regards to who they are identity-wise, which relates to my IGO work. If you're just, again, curious, like, who's this guy rambling on? I created the concept of I didn't create the concept, I just gave it a word. I don't take credit for whoever this guy is because it's all sort of being made up, isn't it? So the IGO. So not the ego, but the IGO is the selfie of the mind. And I figured out that if we can define it a little bit, we can understand our projections better, and particularly in the identity that we're projecting onto others. And the screen, or what I call a MORB mask, MORB, the modus operandi of rational behavior and how it's projected into the ID, which is internal dialogue. Just wake up to what we're saying to ourselves about ourselves. We would have we'd be freed actually, rather than the thoughts and the words and the way that we're acting being contrived and controlled by some other force we think is outside us, which is basically our IGO projection that we've put into place. But now we sort of realize that we're the ones projecting it. It's our thoughts, even though we might have adopted them, thoughts that have been given to us. And there's a whole identity culture out there in different dimensions. And we really are not a woke culture at all, where we could be in a higher way of wisdom. But rather than putting something down, it's sort of like, well, what can we learn from it? What can we observe of the mass trance? So masstrance.com. Yeah, grandtourideas.com kind of is the scope of this. And so there could be something here. And I ought to do more YouTubes like this, because most of the time I'm just talking to my phone or handheld recorder, which is what podcasts are about. But this adds something to it. And I don't do it enough, right? Only once or twice a year, really. And I don't mind being on camera. So that's got to change. But how we can do this together in the way that I can support you in whatever hobbies or work or direction you want to take your interests, the tie, right? Your time, where you're going to maybe investigate something, the next level for you that's of interest. And then that's going to create your environment and the energy you have. So community conversation can help spark this, and by bringing our compadres together, we can create a composite workshop. So we get to experience something, but we can help others as well. Whether you accept the idea of an IGO, waking up to our own self-realizations of what my thoughts, words, and actions are, the TWA, the flight we take every day. I use acronyms to sort of a key stroke, sort of like, so you catch yourself in a patterning. You just wake up from it. You don't do that anymore. That becomes sort of the past, it could be a recollection, but something that we've learned from. So our stories really now empower us and can reflect upon something of a life lesson that encourages other people. And not to say that we know better or better than now. It's an awakening. It's like looking at the screen of life, watching a movie like The Matrix and kind of deciphering it and going, hey, did you catch that? Or what does it mean for you? And, how can we reflect on this and contemplate in a way that uplifts us? That's all I'm considering, right? So if we can invite others to this kind of conversation, and not, again, that it has to be structured other than a simple check-in where it's warm and welcoming, and we keep it real and relevant, and yet it's engaging, right? It's educational, but at an enlightening, entertaining level, I think that can be pretty profound, right? It's real consideration for the company that we keep, right? It's a contemplation. It's a deep consideration and caring, right? And that's what it's about to me. And that reflects on kindness in the way of our giving nature. So there's more of a generosity of genuine being, right? So we can reflect on this I call it a divine dialogue, really have to get the heart of it. So it's a community conversation talking about consciousness, trying to get back to where, there we go. So we're not having any distractions. Well, I'm one of those shiny object people. So my request is that you help keep me focused. And in this particular period of time of transition, I ought to commit to my list that I'm going to share with you. It's not public, it could be, but I'm just emailing my core group, my compadres here, Brian and Mike. So my question number one is that we have a conversation about what it is I'm proposing for myself, just helping me as your buddy go through this time. So there's a little bit of buoyancy because, man, I've been misdirected, or I've been given some really bad advice, right? I mean, I'm in an offshoot pattern here, right? So I don't want to be destructive, right? Or disabled or distracted, because this is a very important period of time. But yet what's important to me is on that list. So you can support me just by considering what it is and just say, hey, reflect on it a bit with me in conversation, and then come together maybe in a way where it's not like we can help Mike and create a crowdfund. I don't need that at this point. Although the podcast channel and the instructor community and some of the ideas on that paper do merit itself to expanding the idea of doing community conversations, because it is a contribution. And it doesn't involve your time extensively or your money. That's the beauty of it. But if you care, then this is a way for us to do community action. So that's the contemplation. And just for fun, I want you guys to meet each other. It's completion on this. And yet it has the potential to open up a whole other dimension. So I hope you're following my thoughts here. I hope I'm not too being out of bounds here with my simple request. I'm sharing this because I know you guys don't always listen to my audios, although you do. And you give me feedback, and I appreciate that. You're one of my few people that do listen and give me feedback. I think there's something here. And it's just too bad that it's so opaque in the way that people don't. I'm invisible. It's the gray wolf, right? The invisible teacher. Could be something profound here. I mean, if I'm looking at myself through this projection of the ego and the self of the mind, it's wow. It's a dynamic that goes, it's other dimension, man. And yet, what's happening with it? Well, the fun of it is exploring and writing. I get a lot of satisfaction, deciphering this. So what I wrote about, in addition to my list, is to how we can be a bit more involved in our evolved self. The idea that we could evolve enlightenment for our own experience. So it's experiential, but it's meaningful in the way that I can participate in this evolution, whatever you call it, of consciousness, in a way that helps bring about self-mastery, which is really needed by myself right now more than ever, right? Because I literally am on my own, right? I mean, your inputs and family and the ex and whatever else. I'm looking for a bit of buoyancy in the sense of sort of like, well, maybe things didn't work out the way that they were intended originally. I'll have to reinvent. So this involvement into is an evolved way of being, ultra being present right now, right? So exploring the dimensions of this would be meaningful for me and hopefully of benefit for you, right? And that's the consideration, how to make it work. So it's beyond win-win or fair or the dynamic of, it's a deep contemplative consideration for really what could be meaningful for you and hopefully profound, but a breakthrough in the way that we can contribute, taking our relationship to the next level, the way that we communicate, so that other people, just like in ancient India, they call it, well, I guess they still do if you have a guru, the darshan, where you would have this encounter with the guru or the enlightened one, and the realization shows up for you, whether you be the Buddha or Christ consciousness or some nirvana dimension, of awakening, Satori, whatever it is for you. I just call it UBE3, ultra being, an excellent example of this field of enlightenment, of excellence, really, in the way that it's personified. And it's a naturalistic way of being because we've tapped into this source, whatever you be for you. You get to define it because it's your own internal involvement here, right? This is what it's about. How I can in turn evolve into something. So I'm involved in my own evolution. And it's a conscious setting. And this is sort of the markers for this community conversation. It doesn't have to be over the head or boom on other people's, we don't want to add to their burden or confusion. And yet we could have some dynamic that goes, wow, this is an incredible experience. And that helps the enlightenment of whatever it is, releasing the burden, like I Femi would say, letting it go. Or the ability, as Krishnamurti, these are all great philosophers and teachers of our recent time, that would have helped a person understand what it is that they're observing about themselves as an observer, but yet getting out of the story in a way that you can clearly see things for what they are. And you may have a certain critique, but the goal of consciously evolving it to make it better. At the same time, there's a detachment, but it's still a loving, caring connection because otherwise you wouldn't be involved. But you're careful about it because you don't want to upset the consciousness of that other person because it could make it more stodgy and pound them into the ground, where they now have an even harder time to get out because you made them wrong, or they get defensive, or they're just sort of like distracted into something else. Like, what is this core thing that we have that sparked this connection? I'm curious about it. You might have your own opinion, you might not have the interest, and I have to respect that. But at the same time, though, I encourage you, it's like, hey, I care for you, and I want us to make a contribution where our life mattered on this level, not just in the satisfaction, like, oh, I got my own, right? I made it here, there, and hey, I'm secure in my retirement, or what, it's like, hey, too much about that ego thing, that I want to evolve something that I'm conscious of, this IGO, the selfie of the mind, that I can better understand is that who I really want to be? And understanding it's not really me, it's the projection of me, but it's the refinement of sort of a concept that I'm looking into a mirror type self, right? Whether you call it your soul or the dynamic of sort of like what sparks me, my ultra being, loving, coming from my heart, part of this spiritual sourcing, whatever it would be. I'm not saying the defining message is that, of whatever that is, because that's projected, right? It's what's in here. So evolvement is sort of the term or thinking I came up with this morning. And the other part of where people look at chanting being New Age and talk about the Om, and it's not OM, it's actually spelled AUM in, I think, Vedic translation, Sanskrit. I don't know anything much about that stuff at all. But the AUM is where people are meditating and contemplating. They think, oh, they're connecting to the universe. But the concept is that how I interpret it, that you could be contemplating to the sound of creation and the universe. And that's fine because we are part of that, but you are the subject matter then of something. You know what I mean? It's sort of the objective reality of contemplating creation is not the creator. It's just, I've been created. So how am I projecting it and understanding it? I hope you get it. It's sort of like, I don't want to get off into something, but it's sort of like, it's sort of like the cosmic complex of things. It would be sort of the consideration of existence, right? That's what ancient Greek philosophy, ontology is about. So the study of ultra being and how to be this excellent example of enlightenment that's channeled through you, because you're simply present, right? This practice of ultra being present, coming from this source of love, which is a natural way of being in its emptiness, and yet you're totally connected, right? Because you're free to be able to be so, rather than a person who's sort of confined and restricted because the glass is half full or empty or whatever. Sort of like, just be empty, or if you're going to be full of it, recognize it, see it. And now you can release it As Guy Finley would say, let it go. So where do we take it to this next level? And if I'm sharing this with you, I'm really asking that question sincerely. Whether you're willing to step up and consider these ideas, I'm just asking you as a friend and a member of the community, support me in my venture here because I think it's worthwhile. And I've never really made this request. I've never asked anyone, in this for help ever, right? For money. Do you know of me ever ask anyone for money? Maybe, from mom, but paid it back as a quarter to get to the corner store and buy some gum. So chew on this, folks. It's sort of like the idea of ultra being, an excellent example of enlightenment. If that's sort of the gateway formula and some solution to our ultimate way of being, then that's what we ought to be contemplating on, or at least considering in some dimension. So I'm asking you to, for my own sake, but also to the value of our friendship and the connectivity that we have. And could we evolve a community conversation that brings into elements of a construction of a community that's a friendship fellowship that brings in people to reconnect, reignite, and really sort of find a dimension where we're of service and empowering friendships and making them more meaningful. Friendshipfellowship.com, whatever we can call other offshoots and spins of these ideas, but they are long-lasting in the way that we can leave a legacy, a long-lasting legacy that has impact. Is what I'm looking at, UBE3, ultra being an excellent example of enlightenment as a formula, to have this as a basis. And if you can think of something better, I'm all open to it because that's where I'm at, right? This, to be involved in my involvement, I want to evolve consciousness. I want us to have a breakthrough so we can have a desirable, sustainable future for the world. And how do we encapsulate this to where your contribution is the most meaningful of all? Because it's required. Without you, and it's beyond needing and wanting. It's sort of the expectation, right, of what's right, what can fit. And if there's fear or thinking this is some, wow, the Lord of Scam has really come up with something now. It's just like, I want to break free too. I want to help you break free if that's something I can do, where there's permission granted for me to be involved in your evolution. And whatever that would be, as sort of as a coach, guide, mentor, you have that capacity. And maybe it's a role responsibility you wish to be better at and to express, whether it's a parent, a sibling, you're involved in management, someone's boss. How are you in the relationship, right? The dynamics. I call it an RF, arena ratio field. It's like, could we have a composite to whatever this vibe, this metasphere, this sort of sense of connection? Because there's something, whether good or bad, it's like you can feel it. So what is this intuitive vibe? What am I feeling in the vestibular sense? Tapping into that first, I think, gives us grounding. And then we can speak from this because we're hearing ourselves or sensing what we're interpreting and being able to express it in words. And then through this pretense, attitude, or whatever it is that's being described, we can begin to see ourselves. And that's kind of IGOresearch.com with that work and the book proposal of an IGO Institute, and something that we can perhaps all come to better understand about ourselves and the way that we can change, and the change work element, be involved in our own evolvement, right? To evolve consciousness. All right. CommunityConversations.com, BrainTourIdeas.com. For those stragglers that came into this going, what's it about? Elfie. All right, I'm MikeRatner.com. Thank you for considering these ideas, and for my friends coming out there, hey, a bit of a longer talk. Well, it seems like I always average out into the 20s. I'm just at the 22 mark. I'm going to end it here. Thanks again. Mike's Mastermind on YouTube.